3 a.m. cry for help, dark struggles with faith, when I nearly gave up forever. The clock struck 3, and the air crackled with an unsettling energy, thick as fog. Emily sat on her bed, shadows dancing across the walls. Dark thoughts clawed at her mind, spiraling into a vortex of despair. Outside, the night felt alive, whispering secrets only she could hear. Was it the wind, or something more? A low hum echoed through her thoughts, a haunting melody that made her skin crawl. She peered out the window, heart pounding. Every rustle in the trees seemed like a warning. In the distance, a single light flickered, creating a flickering dance that felt almost mocking. Was it a sign? An omen? Strange things had been happening. Crumpled papers finding their way back into her desk after she threw them away, eerie dreams of unfamiliar faces staring at her, begging for something she couldn't understand. The more she tried to shake it off, the stronger the grip it had on her. It was as if her faith was dwindling, and shadows of doubt loomed larger each day. Her mind raced, mixing memories of laughter and light with a weight that pulled her down. She could feel the lump in her throat, a bitter reminder of her fears. Emily. The sudden outburst from her younger brother jolted her, his wide eyes filled with panic. Did you hear that? A thud echoed from the hallway, a heavy sound that sent a chill racing down her spine. She shook her head, but her heart raced. Maybe it was just the wind, she suggested, but her voice trembled. The darkness felt thick, wrapping around her like a shroud. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as the words fell from her lips, another knock rattled the door. It wasn't just a knock. It was urgent, desperate. Her brother's eyes widened further, fear etched across his face. What if it's Mom? He whispered, voice shaking. A surge of hope pierced through her dread. But that hope quickly morphed into uncertainty. What if it's not? What if it's something worse? The thudding grew louder, as if whatever was out there was hungry for entry. The room held its breath, and so did Emily. With her pulse pounding in her ears, she moved toward the door. Was she ready to confront what lay beyond? What if it was all just a figment of her collapsed faith? The fleeting thought of giving up forever crept in, and with it, an urge to break free from her own fears. But one question haunted her more than any other: would she find salvation, or would she be devoured by the darkness that awaited her? Emily's hand rested on the doorknob, fingers trembling. The wood felt cold beneath her fingertips, grounding her in a moment that spun with chaotic energy. The knocking intensified, pounding like a heartbeat, desperate and demanding. Emily? Her brother whispered again, his voice barely audible over the thud. The air in the room felt heavier, thickening as if the walls were closing in. She could see panic reflected in her brother's wide eyes, mirroring her own dread. What if it's a monster? He voiced her fears, summoning a brief, chilling laugh from somewhere deep within her. But the chill did not fade. Instead, it swelled, gripping her heart tighter. Could it really be a monster? Or something far worse? Without thinking, she swung the door open. The hallway stood empty, dark, swallowing the faint glow from their room. But the thumping hadn't stopped. It reverberated around her, bouncing off the walls. Hello? She called, her voice quavering. Something stirred, deeper in the shadows, just beyond the flickering light from the living room. Is anyone there? Silence answered, thick and suffocating. Her heart raced harder now, a wild drumbeat of fear. It's just the wind, she murmured, half-heartedly trying to convince herself. Let us close the door. Her brother urged, now at her side, pulling her away from the darkness. But something compelled her forward. I need to see. With cautious steps, she ventured into the hallway. Was it actually brave, or was it just giving in to curiosity, the kind that leads to regret? Shadows shifted along the walls, dancing like ghosts, teasing her as she crept towards the living room. Each step felt like an echo of her own vulnerability. The light grew brighter as she entered the living room, and froze. In the center of the room, a familiar figure stood, framed by the glowing light, a woman with wild, tangled hair and piercing eyes that glinted like shards of ice. The air shifted, a chill swept through the room. Emily's breath quickened as she realized, it was her mother. But there was something wrong. This wasn't the comforting presence she once knew. Mom? The word escaped her lips like a prayer, trembling and uncertain. Emily. The voice was strained, almost alien. Help me. A flash of recognition flickered in the woman's gaze, but it quickly turned to desperation. What happened? Panic clawed at Emily's insides. She took a hesitant step forward, wanting to reach out, to bridge the gap. But her mother's eyes glimmered with something dark, swirling beneath the surface. There's no time. A sharp clap of thunder boomed outside, drowning her mother's plea. Emily recoiled, the shadows creeping closer as the world outside fell into disarray. She fought the urge to retreat, to hide from whatever had taken hold of her once beloved mother. Emily! Her brother shouted from the hallway, voice rising in fear. Stay back! She yelled, feeling the weight of fate on her shoulders. Questions pounded in her mind, driving her to the edge. What had happened to her mother? What darkness lingered in wait? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed, and the windows rattled, sending shards of fear spiraling through her. Emily turned to see shapes forming just beyond the glass, the shadows of figures that twisted and writhed, wanting to enter, to break through. Emily, get out of there! Her brother's terrified plea cut through the chaos, but her legs remained frozen, entranced by the wild look in her mother's eyes. Help me, the woman repeated, the words coiling around Emily's heart like a vice. As her mother reached out, the shadows surged, inches from breaking through. The pounding grew louder, more insistent. This was more than a call for help. It was a warning. And in that moment, Emily faced a choice, to confront the truth in front of her or flee into the thick night that promised its own horrors. But what she didn't know was that behind her mother's desperate gaze lay a revelation that would change everything. What darkness had truly claimed her home? Emily's heart hammered in her chest as the shadows outside grew restless, their forms shifting and pulsating, desperate to break through the thin pane of glass. The air thickened with tension, an oppressive weight that stole her breath. She was caught between the alluring familiarity of her mother and the cold dread that rippled through the room. Emily, please. I need you to listen, her mother said, urgency cracking through her voice. An icy dread gripped Emily's spine. This wasn't the mother who sang her to sleep on stormy nights. It was as if someone had taken her beloved parent and twisted her into something unrecognizable. Mom, what's wrong? Emily barely whispered, fearing the answer more than anything. Darkness has come for us, her mother said, stepping forward. The flickering light cast jagged shadows across her face, highlighting the desperation in her eyes, the fear that clawed its way past fragile bravado. It's too late for me, but you must fight for your brother. Just then, the sound of shattering glass echoed through the house, shards raining down like a rain of dark stars. Panic surged in Emily's veins. Mom, get away from there! She screamed, shoving her brother behind her, desperate to shield him. The room felt alive, a sinister entity breathing heavily around them. Emily's focus snapped back to her mother, her voice softening. I'm here. I'm not leaving you. But even as she said it, uncertainty coursed through her. Could she trust what stood before her? With a sudden flare of anger, her mother shook her head. No. You have to go. They want you. Her voice was a whirlwind, whispers escaping into the chaos surrounding them. Images flashed in Emily's mind, her mother smiling, cooking, holding her tight on the porch. But the woman before her was alien, twisted by shadows and fear. The wails of a distant storm soared through the air, drowning her out. Make it stop. Emily cried, the noise pounding against her skull. It felt like the house was alive, choking on darkness. Listen, Emily. Go to the basement. Her mother shouted, desperation turning to an edge of fright. Your father's thinks the box is the key. There was a crackle of energy in the air, electric and alive, and suddenly, a darkness gripped the walls, tendrils reaching out toward Emily. The vortex of despair unfurled before her, pulling at her with unseen hands, and Emily felt her resolve waver. She glanced at her brother, his face pale and terrified. It was a fleeting moment where time ceased, the chaos and fear crystallized, standing still. Mom! She yelled, panic giving birth to fury. I want to leave you. But her mother shook her head, eyes wide and frantic. You have to protect him. Get out. As she spoke, the shadows coiled tighter. Emily's breath hitched, the choice was excruciating. I can't just abandon you. The storm outside screamed louder, pushing Emily to the edge where terror danced on the knife's edge of sanity. The shadows seemed to ripple with malevolent laughter, swarming ever closer, and panic seized her heart. Move! Her mother shouted, her voice breaking through the clamor. With a surge of adrenaline, Emily's instincts kicked in. Though every fiber of her being wanted to resist, she turned and bolted for the hallway, her brother at her heels. As they stumbled down the hall, the shadows lashed out behind them, and Emily realized with a jolt they were losing them both to the darkness. They needed the box, the key to whatever had claimed their home, but even as she ran, doubt crawled in. Could there be hope hidden beneath that chaos? What had truly taken hold of her mother? Just then, a bright flash illuminated the darkness, momentarily revealing a figure standing in the living room, eyes blazing with something both terrifying and familiar. With fear curling tightly in her stomach, Emily whispered, "What was that?" The answer lingered just out of reach, and she could sense it slipping through her fingers even as she sprinted toward the basement door, heart pounding louder than the tempest outside. In the rushing torrent of fear and desperation, one truth loomed large: the darkest of secrets were yet to be revealed. And time was running out. What lay in the shadows ahead would either save them or swallow them whole. Emily burst through the basement door, a shaft of dark air rushing past her, cool and heavy like a shroud. Her heart raced, the pulse of dread sinking with the wild storm outside. The basement loomed before them, a cavernous darkness littered with old boxes and forgotten memories. It felt like an abyss, threatening to swallow them whole. "Stay close, Ethan," she whispered urgently, grabbing her brother's hand as they stepped inside. The dim light flickered from an old bulb above, casting unnerving shadows that danced around them. Every corner was a reminder of past lives, broken toys, old furniture, remnants of a childhood long gone. Where's the box?" Ethan stammered, fear mixing with confusion on his young face. The innocence that normally shone there now felt like a cheap flicker beside the horror that lay ahead. "I don't know," Emily replied, desperation creeping into her voice. "Just help me look." They separated slightly, scanning the piles of chaos that surrounded them. The storm's howl seeped through the walls, a reminder that danger was not far behind. Emily's eyes darted around, running over every cardboard box, every shadow that dared to shift. "Mom warned us about the box," Ethan said, his small voice breaking. "Just keep looking." She snapped, the urgency overriding her own mounting fear. She wasn't about to fold now. If there was a key, it had to be here. Their mother's frantic words echoed in her mind, reverberating against the steady thrum of what was stalking them. Emily pulled at a nearby box, its lid threatening to buckle under her grip. She yanked it open, but instead of answers, it was filled with shards of broken glass, a cruel reminder of their recent encounter. Fear flooded her senses. She could almost hear the shadows laughing, taunting her with failure. Suddenly, a hushed whisper cut through the air, chilling her to the bone. "Help me," a voice, almost like her mother's, but twisted and wrong, a beguiling lure from the shadows. "Ethan!" She called out, her throat thickening, but he was across the room, gripping an old lamp that flickered uncertainly. "Listen to me. We can't get distracted." With a nod, he focused, his small hands trembling as he turned the lamp in the dim light, revealing more boxes at the far edge of the basement. "Over there." Emily pointed, urgency returning to her limbs as they rushed toward what seemed like an answer. She pushed aside dust and cobwebs, revealing an old trunk nestled tightly against the wall. As her fingers brushed against the latch, a sudden crack of thunder roared from outside, echoing through the basement like a living thing. Emily hesitated, heart in her throat. What if opening this box unleashed something worse? But now wasn't the time for second thoughts. "Help me," Ethan begged, reaching up to pull at the clasp. Together they opened the trunk with a creak that sounded like a sigh of relief or dread. She could not tell. Inside lay an odd assortment of items, old photographs, crumpled letters, and a single box with strange symbols etched into the surface. Her fingers trembled as she extracted it, the weight of generations pressing against her. "What is that?" Ethan whispered, eyes wide with a mix of fear and curiosity. "I don't know, but it might be what we need," Emily replied, staring at the box as though it might bite. She felt a pull, an unexplainable urge to open it. But as she finally lifted the lid, she was met with a swirling mist that erupted and filled the air with a biting chill. "Emily!" Ethan screamed, clutching her leg, terror spilling from his eyes. They both stumbled back, the shadows around them thickening, whispering secrets that clawed at their minds. Whatever was inside was alive, unfurling, and taking on a shape. A terror beyond their imagination began to rise from the heart of the box. "Stay back!" Emily shouted, holding the box steady, but the swirling mist curled around her, tugging at her senses. Fear gripped her, heart racing at the realization that whatever it was, it wouldn't be friendly. "Did we just unleash it?" Ethan whispered, trembling, just as Emily tried to think of how to contain the chaos. Everything spiraled out of control. She realized she had to confront whatever demon lurked within. "Hold on!" she shouted, gripping the box tighter. "We need to close it." But the darkness wouldn't yield easily. It whispered to her, promising power, promises that tempted the edges of her fear. The moment stretched, taut with uncertainty. Could they overcome this horror, or would they become the next victims of the shadows? And in that charged silence, an unsettling thought bubbled to the surface. Maybe the answer to their plight was hidden in the darkness they were trying to escape. Emily's heart thundered in her chest, a brutal drumbeat of fear and determination that clashed with the pulsing shadows around her. The mist surged closer, dark tendrils curling around her legs, drawing her into an embrace that felt almost intimate, yet suffocating. "Ethan, hold on tight!" she yelled, instinctively pulling him closer as panic wrapped itself around her throat. His tiny fingers gripped her fingers, nails like claws, digging in with a mix of trust and terror. The shadows whispered, growing louder, a cacophony of voices blending into a desperate chant, old, twisted, and hungry. "Join us, become one with the darkness, surrender, no. Get away from us!" Emily shouted, fueling her anger against the fear. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to shut out the sound, to drown the poison they wanted to inject into her mind. The box pulsed in her hands, alive and vibrating with energy. She could feel it thrumming against her fingers, like a heartbeat screaming to be set free. "We have to get rid of this thing," she cried, the urgency sharpening her resolve. "We can't let it take us." Suddenly, with a surge of strength, she slammed the lid down, but before it clicked shut, a piercing wail sliced through the air, reverberating in her bones, a sound so raw, so filled with anguish that it stole the breath from her lungs. What felt like icy fingers clawed at her throat, and for a moment, she was paralyzed by the dread. "Emily, please, don't let it in." Ethan sobbed, his face pale, eyes wide with terror. "I want tea," she promised, yet doubt crept in like the mist. What if this was the end? What if the darkness was more powerful than they could comprehend? With unyielding determination, she took a deep breath and leaned closer, praying for strength. "I won't give in," she vowed, forcing herself to meet the swirling chaos inside. She could feel the weight of her family's legacy pressing down, a legacy marked by secrets and shadows, twisted tales that had lain dormant for too long. Suddenly, a bright flash lit up the basement, momentarily dispelling the darkness. It felt like a lifeline, a spark of hope cutting through the anguish and despair, urging her on. "Ethan!" she shouted, "we need to add light. Now!" He looked terrified but nodded, scrambling over to the old lamp. His hands fumbled with the switch, desperation pouring off him as the light flickered, casting strange shapes against the dark walls. Emily seized the moment, her resolve hardening. With all her might, she yelled into the void, "You don't own us. You can't have my family." The words came from a place deeper than fear, a primal instinct to fight for their lives. The mist seemed to recoil, shaking as though the words bit into it. She could feel the sensations shifting like the very air around her fought back. But it wasn't tea enough. The shadows reached out, and Emily could sense despair coiling tighter. "Ethan, now!" She propelled herself forward, pushing the lid down with all her strength. It clicked shut just as the wails crescendoed into a cacophony of fury. The shadows slammed against the box, a desperate thrashing, twisted and angry. "Please! Let this end!" she screamed, her voice growing hoarse as she pressed her palms against the smooth surface, feeling the pulse of darkness still trapped inside. The room flickered with light as Ethan finally flipped the lamp on, and in that instant, the shadows recoiled, shuddering back. A silence fell over the basement, heavy and fraught with tension, until Ben reached for the trunk, his small fingers resting on the lid, hesitant. "What now?" he whispered, looking up at her with wide eyes, uncertainty creeping back into his voice. Emily felt the swell of something inside her, a mixture of fear and courage. "I don't know, but we have to find out." As they stared at the ominous box, dread clung to the air like smoke, and Emily felt a cold whisper graze her ear. This isn't over. A knot of dread tightened in her gut, and she could feel cold sweat trickle down her back. The journey was just beginning, and they had only begun to scratch the surface of the darkness that awaited them. "What else is out there, Emily?" Ethan asked, voice trembling as shadows continued to swirl just beyond the edges of the light. She turned towards him, resolve flooding her veins. "Whatever it is, we will face it together." A crack of thunder rumbled outside, sounding like an ominous warning. But deep within the box, something stirred again, a promise of secrets and power yet to be unleashed. Would they dare to open it again, knowing the risk? In that moment, a question hung in the air, heavy with ominous potential. What other horrors awaited them on the other side of the darkness? The silence in the basement stretched into an uneasy stillness, each heartbeat echoing in the thick air. Emily's eyes darted around, scanning the dim corners where shadows lingered, almost sentient in their hunger. Something was waiting, lurking. "Emily?" Ethan whispered, his voice trembling, reverberating in the hush. "What if it gets out?" "It won't, not if we stay strong," she insisted, forcing bile back down her throat. Her stomach twisted, tightening against burgeoning fears. How much longer could they hold on? A sudden creak spoke above them, drawing Emily's gaze to the staircase leading up to the house. The sound felt like a harbinger something or someone was approaching. "Ben," she stammered, almost choking on the name. "We can't let anyone else near that thing." He nodded silently, a chill creeping into his eyes, reflecting her own growing dread. The shadows pulsed again, a low rumble that seemed to resonate from within the box. "Do you feel that?" Ben asked, glancing nervously between them. "Yeah, it's like it's alive and angry," Emily replied, her voice barely above a whisper. But she could feel it, the box thrumming with energy, a dark force ready to unleash itself. With new urgency, she turned back to the trunk, weighing her next move. If we're going to open it, we have to do it together, she said, trying to rally her brother. I'm scared, Ethan's small voice quaked with fear. Me too, she admitted, the honesty leaving a weight in her chest. But we can't let fear win. If we do, we lose everything. She stepped forward, adrenaline pulsing, fingers curling around the box lid. It felt like grasping a live wire, electric and treacherous. On the count of 3, we're going to open it, okay? Ethan clenched her hand tighter. Okay. 1, 2, each number felt like striking a match in a dark room. 3. With a collective effort, they yanked the lid open. An agonizing shriek erupted from within, an explosion of sound that shattered the quiet. The shadows surged, a tidal wave crashing against the light, swirling chaotically. Emily fought to stand her ground, clenching her jaw against the surge of panic trying to drag her under. Light! She shouted. More light! We need more light! Ethan scrambled toward the lamp, fumbling with it like his life depended on it. The darkness snaked around their legs, wrapping tighter, almost like a living thing. Just as Ethan managed to flip the switch, a blinding beam shot across the room. The shadows screeched, their form twisting and writhing, struggling against the glow. The noise pierced Emily's ears, drowning out her thoughts and bolstering her resolve. Stay back! She yelled, directing her fury into the light. For a moment it worked. The shadows recoiled, but the box trembled violently, rattling as if it sought to escape. Ethan, keep the light on it. She urged, pushing forward carefully. But then, the lid of the box flew open wider than before, and a figure surged from within, a silhouette emerging from the cauldron of darkness, features blurred and twisted. No! Emily shouted, sending a surge of panic. The phantom loomed larger, darker than the surrounding shadows, eyes glowing like embers. You can't hold on. It hissed, voice dripping with malice. In that moment, she felt her courage waver. She stumbled back, the floor slick with fear, and all at once, everything blurred. It was a battle against something deep, something ancient that knew her, wanted to expose her vulnerabilities. Ethan, we need to stand together. She yelled, fighting to keep the horror at bay. But even as she screamed, the shadows thickened, obstructing the light, threatening to snuff it out, and then, amid the chaos, a fragment of thought broke through the din, a memory of a whispered prayer, the kind that felt like a lifeline in a storm. Ethan, we need faith! She exclaimed suddenly, grasping at an idea not just for them but for their family, for everything they were fighting to save. You believe it? He asked, uncertainty flickering beneath his brave facade. More than ever. In that instant, a flicker of hope ignited somewhere deep. If they were going to fight the darkness, they had to believe in the light. With renewed fervor, she shouted into the oncoming terror, we are not alone. This ends now. The shadows hesitated, a ripple sweeping through them, and Emily felt the surge of power in their united cry. But just as victory seemed near, everything ice-cold and still, an ominous curse slithered through the air. Next time, it echoed, there will be no light. As the darkness swirled closer, Emily's heart raced wildly. If they couldn't hold on now, what would happen next? Would they face their fears head-on, or would that whisper turn into something far worse? They had only just begun to uncover the truth. The shadows writhed like serpents, coiling tighter, suffocating the light as if it had threatened their very existence. Emily's heart raced, a primal drumbeat echoing through her chest, paralyzing her in fear and determination. What do we do now? Ethan's voice trembled, piercing the tension. He clutched the lamp, its dim glow a flickering barrier against the engulfing darkness. Stay with me! Emily shouted, her voice thick with urgency. We can't let it control us. The phantom's form shifted, its features grotesque and ever-changing. It hovered before them, eyes glowing like molten coals, sparking empathy and terror in equal measure. Emily felt a chill creep into her soul, whispering that perhaps the entity wasn't merely a monster, it was an embodiment of all their fears, insecurities, and regrets, a mirror reflecting the darkest corners of their identities. "Look at it, Em." Ethan cried out, pointing. "It knows us. It knows our secrets." "No. It's just trying to scare us," she replied, forcing each word through clenched teeth. "Don't let it in, Ethan." But the glow from the lamp was fading, the beam trembling against the escalating threat. Emily felt the weight of despair settle like a heavy shroud. What if we're not strong enough? The doubt crept in, unwelcome yet persistent, and then there it was, a flicker of memory, a glimpse of their past, days filled with laughter, lessons of faith their parents had instilled in them. This entity couldn't possess that. "Ethan, remember Mom's stories? About how the light always drives out darkness?" The words poured from her mouth, desperation mingling with determination. "We have to believe that now." Before she could finish, the shadows lunged forward, their tendrils brushing against her skin, icy and invasive. Fear knotted tight in her stomach. "Hold on to the light," she roared. The lamp flickered wildly, and for a moment, a warm glow surged back, illuminating her sibling's terrified face. "On 3, we say it together. We'll summon all our memories, all our faith," Emily declared, feeling a spark swell deep within. Ethan nodded, squeezing her hand tightly as he steadied himself. "Okay. 1, 2, she gulped, feeling the enormity of the moment. 3. Light drive out the dark." They both shouted, their voices resonating like the peal of thunder, reverberating against the unyielding air. What happened next caught them off guard. A pulse of energy rippled through the very ground beneath them, and the shadows recoiled as if they had been struck. The air vibrated with an electric hum, a surge of power igniting their courage. "Keep going," Emily pressed, feeling momentum pulse in her veins. "Remember the love we have. Remember how we're not alone." Ethan's eyes brightened, the flicker of faith returning. "We are not afraid." With that, there was a colossal release of energy. The shadows shrieked, their forms bending and collapsing under the force of the light. For the first time, Emily felt the upper hand. But just as hope filled her like fresh air, the phantom morphed again, its face no longer just a horror but a reflection of their deepest fears. "You think this will last?" it hissed, voice dripping with venom. "You'll suffer long after I'm gone." Its mocking laughter rang in her ears, and for a moment, doubt seeped back in. Was this just a temporary reprieve? Would the darkness return to haunt them once again? As the shadows began to recede, Emily felt a shiver run up her spine, a warning that their fight was far from over. "Ethan, we need to figure out how to banish it. This is only the beginning." But before they could move, the basement door creaked open, revealing a silvery figure stepping down the stairs. "What's going?" Ben's voice trailed off, caught in shock as the shadow surged back. "Ben, no!" Emily screamed, her heart plummeting. He had walked right into the fray. Would they lose everything they fought for when they were this close to finding a way out? The answer hung in the air, thick and foreboding. Emily could feel it. They had unearthed more than they bargained for, and now, the plan to confront their darkest fears would be tested like never before. What they didn't know was that something much deeper and more sinister was hidden in the shadows they had yet to confront. They weren't prepared for what lurked in the darkness, and neither were the new players stepping onto the field. The air thickened with silence as Ben's shocked expression morphed into horror. The shadows, sensing fresh fear, lashed out hungrily, snaking toward him with an eerie grace. Emily's heart stuttered. "Get back, Ben. Don't come any closer." But it was too late. The darkness enveloped him, coiling around his frame, drawing him into its fold. Emily's frantic scream hung suspended in the air, a raw note of desperation that rang painfully against the looming dread. "Ethan!" she cried, panic bubbling over as she grasped her brother's arm. "We have to pull him out. Now!" Ethan's grip tightened around the lamp, its flickering light wavering under the assault of shadowy tendrils. "What do we do?" His voice was small, trembling like the dim glow in his hand. "I can't let them take him." "I know. We'll summon our memories again," Emily shouted, her mind racing for any trace of their shared stories, anything to counteract the consuming dark. "We need to remember, Ethan. All the good moments." With a nod, Ethan locked eyes with her, determination hardening them as they focused together. 1, 2, 3. Light drive out the dark. They cried, voices intertwining, resonating until the very walls vibrated with their combined force. The shadows screeched, a cacophony of rage and despair, but a brilliant wave shot forth from the lamp, engulfing the shadowy mass. Emily felt the warmth wash over her, but the darkness retaliated, flooding back in, thicker this time, feeding off their fear. "Ben!" Emily felt sick at the sight of her brother, struggling in the grasp of shadows, eyes wide with terror. A lump formed in her throat, choking her resolve. "You have to fight, Ben. Think of the beach. Remember the sandcastles. Hold on," Ethan urged, feeling the energy of their voices crackle in the air. He stepped forward, drawing from the memories they cherished. "Remember that time we all laughed so hard we cried over Dad's terrible jokes? That was real. This is just a trick." And then, as if in response to their desperate longing for hope, the shadows wavered, momentarily shrinking away from the luminescence. "Fight it. Fight back," Emily begged, focusing her every thought and feeling on her brother. "We're with you. We're not letting go." Ben's expression shifted. A flicker of recognition shone through the veil of darkness. I remember the beach," he gasped, his voice barely a whisper. "Keep going. You can do it," Ethan yelled, reflecting his sister's fierce determination. The shadows pulsed, tightening around Ben like a vice, yet he pushed back, clinging to the memories anchoring him to reality. "Light, drive out the dark," Ben echoed, struggling against the shadow's pull, and for the first time, the darkness hesitated, doubt flickering in its ghastly form, but then the entity reared back, its voice slithering like a serpent. "You think love will save you? You're merely delaying the inevitable." The shadows lunged again, furious, a vortex of despair roaring toward them. Emily and Ethan held their breath, hearts pounding in sync. "It knows our fears," Ethan shouted, clutching the lamp tighter. "Don't let it in, Ben. Don't believe it." Ben squeezed his eyes shut, visibly fighting the anguish inside him. Suddenly, he shouted back at the dark, "No. I'm not afraid of you." In that instant, Emily saw the shadows recoil. A surge of hope exploded from her heart, driving her to pull Ben back with every ounce of her strength. "Do it now. We have to let the light in," Emily insisted, a fire igniting in her chest. If they all joined the fight, together they could cast this darkness away, even temporarily. They raised the lamp, voices trembling, "We are not afraid." But just as the light flared brightly again, the room trembled. Beneath them, the ground shuddered, a chilling echo of distant laughter resonated from the depths of the shadows, slithering into their ears. They weren't the only ones here, something more sinister stirred in the depths and it was unfurling. What awaited them next? Did the darkness have a master they hadn't faced yet? Or had they only awakened a new, unimaginable threat? The ground shook violently, as if the very earth was trying to expel the darkness creeping upon them. Emily stumbled, heart racing, the lamp flickering wildly, its light a beacon, yet feeling so wan and fragile against the encroaching blackness. "Ethan!" she shouted, her voice cracking with fear. "We have to stay together. We can't let it separate us." "Right. He shouted back, but his eyes were wide with uncertainty. The light from the lamp barely penetrated the thick darkness, and he could sense a presence forming, lurking just beyond the edges of their vision. It wasn't just shadows, it was something alive, filling the room with a sense of dread. Ben's face contorted in pain, slumped against the pull of the darkness. "Help me!" he gasped, his voice strained. Shadows billowed around him, and each word he uttered felt like it was being sucked back into the void. The shadowy figures twisted and coiled, laughing softly, a chorus of mockery that chilled Emily's blood. "I can't hold it," Ben wailed, his eyes searching for something, anything to pull him back. Panic clawed at Emily's throat. How could she reach her brother when even daylight seemed scared of stepping in? Taking a deep breath, Emily reached for her own inner strength. She dug deep, remembering every precious moment, the beach, the birthdays, and the nights spent under a blanket, telling stories until they fell asleep. "Ben, think of Mom. Remember her smile. Remember the cookies she made us?" But the shadows pushed back, swirling ravenously, hungry for their anguish. "What are you going to do with memories, little girl?" The darkness hissed. "They can't save him. They can't save you." Ethan gritted his teeth, refusing to back down. "Shut up. We're not scared of you." He stepped forward, lamp raised high. A small, spitting flame erupted from its center, catching the darkness off guard. "What are you? You don't belong here." A rumbling laugh echoed ominously, vibrating through the walls. "Oh, but I do. I am the fears you hide, the doubts you suppress. And I will take him." "No!" Emily screamed, lunging towards Ben, but the shadows surged forward, a hungry wave. She felt the icy tendrils wrapping around her ankles, pulling her down. The chilling touch traveled up her legs, drowning her in despair. "Fight it!" Ethan yelled, desperation tightening his voice. "We can do this. Ben, focus on us. Remember how we battled the monsters under your bed? Remember how we always won." Emily squeezed her eyes shut, channeling every ounce of love into her voice. "We are a team. We're stronger together. You have to believe, Ben." In that moment, the shadows paused, as if considering her words. "Together?" It hissed, as though tasting the idea. "What good is teamwork when all you have is fear? Fight back!" Ethan cried, and suddenly, it clicked within Emily. They weren't just fighting darkness, they were fighting the very essence of their fears. With renewed strength, she shouted into the void, "No. We are brave. We choose love. We choose to believe in each other." Ben's eyes flashed with determination. "I will not let you take me," he shouted, reclaiming his voice, the shadows recoiling slightly. "I refuse to be afraid." The air crackled, and for a moment, it felt as if hope might just pull them through. But the shadows roared, a furious tempest, slamming against their resolve. The lamp flickered wildly, its light growing dim, fighting against an unstoppable tide. "Stay strong," Emily urged, glancing at Ethan. But in that heartbeat, the ground split beneath them, a gaping chasm of darkness threatening to swallow them all whole. Just as the shadows began to surge forward again, something glimmered in the abyss, a flash of light like a distant star, hidden beneath a mass of despair. Was it another way out? Or another trap? In that moment of uncertainty, shivers of dread filled the air, heralding the arrival of what lay ahead. What ally awaited in the depths? And would they have the courage to confront whatever emerged before them? The darkness pulsed, a living entity hungry for their despair. Emily felt fear clawing at her insides, a raw panic that threatened to consume her whole. "Ben!" she shouted, desperation tangling her words. "Hold on. We're coming for you." The shadows lashed out, thick and malignant, but she stood her ground, fueling her resolve with a surge of memories and warmth, the family outings, the laughter around the dinner table, her mother's gentle touch. Those were their anchors, reminders of love that breathed life into her heart, a rallying cry against the encroaching darkness. "Stay close, Ethan," she instructed as she took a daring step forward, resolute. The energy in the room felt electric, and the lamp flickered wildly as if responding to her determination. "We can't let it take our family." Ethan's small hand clasped tightly around the lamp's base, trembling but unwavering. "We can do this, Emily. I want to let go of my brother." His voice was strong, fueled by sheer will. They might be terrified, but they wouldn't back down. Together, they edged closer to Ben, his eyes wide with fear, trapped in the shadows that swirled around him like malevolent smoke. "No. Fight it," Emily cried, reaching out for him, her heart pounding like a war drum. "Remember all the good times. Remember our family." Ben's face scrunched in effort, drawing deep breaths, struggling against the clutches of despair. I want to give in," he yelled, and Emily could see the shadows start to falter. Her brother was fighting back, igniting a flicker of hope not only in him but in the darkness itself. The shadows writhed, sensing the power of their unity. "Together," it hissed, voice simmering with disdain. "What strength do you have? With fear's embrace all around, you will fail." "No." The word exploded from Emily's lips, reverberating through the basement with a fierce intensity. "The shadows are nothing compared to our love. Together, we are unstoppable." Ethan raised the lamp higher, its light beaming defiantly amid the growing darkness. "We believe in each other. We stand as one." Together, they forged ahead, the glow illuminating their resolve against the dreadful tides of shadow. "Fight it, Ben," Emily urged, the shadows moving like a wave, relentless in their pursuit. She could feel the grip of fear tightening around her ankles, but she pushed onward. "Think of the beach trips, the nights by the fire. Remember when we all danced in the rain?" As if her words sparked a final flicker of resistance, Ben closed his eyes with determination. "I want to let you in," he shouted again, and with it, shadows recoiled, twisting backward in a writhing frenzy. Emily took a deep breath, infused with a sense of power. "Together." They shouted again, their voices resounding in unison, shattering the oppressive silence like glass. The light surged, and for a moment, the shadows hesitated, as if finding themselves at a fork. "Light, drive out the dark." They all chorused, their fear morphing into defiance, a wave of hope marching against the storm. The shadows shrieked, their sound a cacophony of rage, faltering under the strength of that rallying cry. But just when victory seemed at arm's length, the shadows thrashed wildly, regaining momentum. "You can't win against what you truly are," the entity screeched, a spiral of fear twisting around Emily's heart. "Yes, we can," she cried defiantly. "We choose to love. We choose to believe." Suddenly, the basement trembled, the ground quaking fiercely. Her heart raced in unison with the vibrations, and in the chaos, something glimmered deep within the shadows, a hidden truth. A flash of light emanated from the floor, like a lighthouse guiding a lost ship. "Look!" Ethan shouted, eyes wide with realization. "There's something down there." As the shadows roared, threatening to overwhelm them once more, the force of light emboldened their spirits, pushing aside the deep, lingering dread. "We have to go for it." With resolve set, Emily charged past the swirling darkness, fueled by instinct, with Ethan behind her. They propelled forward, arms outstretched like a lifeline, bravely plunging into the unknown depth. As they neared the radiant call, the void around them began to recoil, shadows flying back violently, leaving a fissure of pure light that in one heartbeat. They crossed the threshold, an explosion of light enveloping them, washing away the shadows as they tumbled into the light. The brilliance swirled and swirled until finally they were engulfed, weightless, as if carried from the depths of despair into freedom, and then stillness. Emily awakened on the familiar, cool wooden floor of the basement the shadows dissipated, leaving behind only a faint, echoing whisper of their presence. Ethan lay beside her, trembling but alive. They both looked around, breathless, their hearts racing from the remnants of fear. "Ben?" Emily called, panic rising again until she spotted him inching toward them, momentarily stunned, but washed free of the dark's grasp. "I'm okay, I think," he muttered, blinking slowly as freshness filled the air, shaking it clean of malice. Tears brimmed Emily's eyes, a wave of relief crashing over her. They were together, intact, illuminated by the lingering glow of victory that chased the remnants of darkness away. "It's over," she whispered, the truth settling deep in her bones, but even as warmth enveloped them, a haunting hint of the shadows reminded them it wasn't truly over. They could feel it in the air, an unfinished thread, a lingering weight, a darkness still lurking, waiting, yet they had discovered something, a strength in solidarity, a resilience that came from choosing love over fear. They were no longer just siblings, they were a family bound by a reckoning that would shape their souls forever. "We're ready," Emily declared, standing alongside her brother and Ben. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." With that shared resolve, they understood darkness might always encroach, but so long as they held on to each other, they could illuminate any path through the shadows that dared to haunt them. The shadows had thrown their worst, but they were far from defeated. And for now, beneath the lingering whispers of what might come, they would bask in the light they had reclaimed, united and stronger than ever. Now, for you, before you go, I have to say this: you need to subscribe right now. Don't miss out on the next thrilling chapter and exclusive stories that are just around the corner. This is the moment to show your support for the channel and help us grow. If you enjoyed this wild ride, smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. It really helps me out. And I want to hear from you, so flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what happens next, but don't just keep that excitement to yourself. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second, let them dive into this journey with us. Your engagement makes all the difference, and I cannot thank you enough.